Hello friends, I will talk about on the topic notices in GST and handling litigations. So these are some common type of GST notices now receiving by the taxpayer. It's after the COVID, now it's very common to receive GST notices in a random way. Whenever you go to the GST portal, check your notices and view additional notices, you will find a lot of GST notices will be there. Even the taxpayers not come to know. So we have to make a habit of checking to notices and view additional notices. So what are the different types of notices we are generally getting now? Delay in filing GSTR 1 and 3B, more than 3 months delay. There is a regular features. GST notices are coming on regular basis. 2A 3B mismatch. There are more than thousands of notices are being issued by GST department on this particular issue. GSTR 2A versus 3B ITC mismatch. GSTR 1 versus GSTR 3B output mismatch. This is now a very common mismatch issues notices are there. 9 and 9C mismatch. Payment of interest on delay of filing 3B both on ITC and CAS. But now on the delay of ITC there will be no interest, only on CAS basis. Inconsistent entries in GSTR 1 and e-waybill portal, that is also a very common notices is coming to the taxpayers. If a seller fails to reduce the price when GST rates are reduced, then their action of the seller will be considered as profiteering, and this can attract GST notice as an anti-profiteering measure. So whenever there is a reduction in GST return in rates, so the taxpayers has to reduce as per the available new rate. Now let us talk about on common type of GST notices, some more points, some more notices which I will add over here. Claiming ineligible GST refund or claiming it in a wrong way. This is also the way first the department will issue the GST refund and later on they will issue a notice that it was erroneously refunded, and then they will claim interest and penalty. So be very careful in claiming refund, because now government has made a tat that in 7 days you will get 90% of your claim refund. So at the time of giving refund they are not verifying so rigorously. They are just blindly giving the refund to the taxpayer as per the pressure of the government. And then later on the audit or on inspection or on some inquiry, you will get to know that you have refunded excess refund. And that time you may have to pay interest and penalty also. And that is a huge burden to the business organization. So be very careful while claiming refund. Inconsistently reporting in GST inconsistently in reporting of exports in GSTR 1 with information available in ICE gate. For example, shipping bill or the bill of export lost on the ICE gate but not reported in GSTR 1. This can be also an issue for getting GST notices. Where a business is liable but has failed to obtain GST registration and discharge the tax and other liabilities under GST Act. There can be many cases, like for example, suppose my rental income is 15 lakhs and my interest income is, let's say, 10 lakhs. So my total turnover is 25 lakhs. But the taxpayer is in the assumption that as my turnover is below 20 lakhs, I will not be liable for GST. But while filing his income tax return, he has shown an income of 25 lakhs. So now, as you know, the GST and income tax are exchanging of informations among each other. So while after you file your income tax return, maybe after 1 year, 2 year, or maybe up to 5 years, the department can issue you a notice that you are liable why you have not taken GST registration, because as per the aggregate turnover, the exempted turnover and taxable turnover together will be calculated for 20 lakhs. So your rental income, if it's a commercial rental income, you are liable for GST, and for interest income, as it is in exempted list, but as an aggregate turnover is above 20 lakhs, so you will be liable for registration. So after maybe 4 years, you will get a demand under Section 74 notice of not taking registration, and you will be liable for interest and penalty. So it will be a huge burden for the taxpayer, as you are unregistered and you have not collected the tax from the consumer, from the person who has taken the land or the house or the commercial building from you for rent. So at that time, if you could have been taken the registration, then the burden of tax may be passed upon on to the tenant. But now, as you have not taken the registration, it will be a huge burden on the taxpayer. So be very careful. If you are unregistered, check your other income and taxable income. If it's crossed 20 lakhs or 40 lakhs, then you have to take GST registration, where information return was required to be furnished before the tax authorities but not submitted within the time limit stipulated, then also you will get a GST notice. So I will share the very hot issues, or very limelight issue, or you can say the most of the if I will say there are hundreds of GST notices are being issued, 80% is this common issue of GSTR 2A 3B, because there is a huge mismatch is going on in 2A versus 3B. So I will share these burning issues, how we can counter to GST department, as we have to counter and we have to challenge this GSTR 2A versus 3B mismatch. As per my personal opinion, you will not be liable to tax even if there is some mismatch, and as due to the defaulter of the supplier. So how we can counter 2A 3B mismatch, ITC mismatch issue, I will share some of the tips and some of the case laws that you can counter in your reply. So first is the Arise India versus Commissioner of Trade and Taxes, Delhi High Court. I've also mentioned the case law number. So here in this case, it has been discussed that purchasing dealer cannot be asked to do the impossible. It means that suppose there is the supplier is in default. Supplier, I have purchased some, suppose say I have purchased 10 laptops from a computer shop as a B2B transaction. So now that computer shop is in default. I have paid the tax to the computer supplied, the person who has supplied to me. But now, after I have purchased and paid that amount to the supplier is in default of not paying the GST liability to the government. He has filed GSTR 1, but he may not be filed GSTR 3B, or he has filed the 3B, but he has wrongly claimed some input tax credit. So, as per the Arise India decision, it has been told that purchaser dealer cannot be liable, cannot do ask for impossible. So we cannot be asked, a taxpayer cannot be asked to check whether the supplier has paid the tax or not. Recovery from the seller first. When there is no collision between the supplier and recipient, non-payment by the supplier cannot lead to reversal by the recipient. The High Court also told that recovery first, the department has to recover the tax from the seller first. Then only the question arises to come to the recipient. If there is no action has been taken on the seller by the tax department, then how can the department can issue directly notices to the recipient, because already recipient has paid the tax to the supplier. So again, if he has to pay to the department, that will be a double taxation. How he will survive in the business? So a department cannot do something impossible, cannot ask in impossible to be done by the taxpayer. A recent GST case law by D. by Bethel Enterprises versus State of Officer in Madurai bench of Madras High Court. They also given a decision in 2021. It is related to GST. ITC cannot be straightforward away be recovered from the recipient on the failure in payment of tax by the supplier without allowing the recipient to examine the supplier as a witness and initiating recovery action against the same supplier. In the similar way, the Madras High Court bench, Madurai bench, has also given the same decision that on the failure of the supplier, recipient cannot be liable immediately. You have to first take action on the supplier. Then only if the supplier is not responding or if something is there, issue is there, then you come to recipient. But directly you going to recipient without taking any action on the supplier is not allowed. So these two case laws can be helping you a lot in countering to GSTR 2A and 3B mismatch. Some type of different types of forms of GST notices is been now is I will highlight some different forms on which GST notice has been issued by the GST departments. GSTR 3A Rule 68. GSTR 3A Notice to the non-filer of GST return for GSTR 3B. This is a very common notices now coming to every taxpayer who is defaulter in GSTR 3B filing. So within 15 days of the receiving of this notice, you have to file your return. Otherwise, the taxpayers may get a consequence of best judgment. Best judgment will be done by the GST department, and they can also be liable for a penalty of 10,000 or 10% of the tax due, whichever is higher. CMP 05, that is a so-called notice questioning the eligibility to be the composition dealer. Then RAG 03, that is a clarification required on the information provided in the new registration applicable amendment of the GST registration. Within 7 days, you have to reply this notice, or otherwise your application will get rejected in RAG 05. RAG 17, it is a so-called notice on why GST registration not be cancelled. So action you have to reply in RAG 18 with reason for non-cancellation of GST registration. Within 7 days you have to give reply, otherwise the consequence will be your GST registration will get cancelled. I will just highlight some important notices. I will not going to read all the notices. So ASMT 02 is a very important notice for seeking additional information for provisional assessment under GST. Reply has to be done in ASMT 03 along with documents. If not done within 15 days, the application will be to be rejected and provisional assessment will be done. ASMT 10. ASMT 10 is a very common notices which been given to all the taxpayer on for the scrutiny of returns. Notice for intimating discrepancy in GST returns. So the taxpayer has to reply in ASMT 11 with giving all the reasons uh, why the discrepancy in the GST returns. Within the time limit of 30 days, you have to give the reply. If you have not been given reply to the taxpayer, or if you have given reply but the officer is not convinced, then they will take action under section 73-74. ADT 01 is a common notice for GST audit by the department under section 65. So you have to give reply of ADT 01 and submit all the documents to the department. If you have not been submitting within 30 days, then department may go for best judgment. And I will share some more important one. DIRC 16, notice for attachment and sale of immovable property or movable property or goods shares under section 79. A taxpayer receiving this notice prohibited from transferring or creating a charge on the said goods in any way, and any transfer or charges created you shall be invalid. So a contravention of any of these notices, why it can lead to prosecution and penalties. Thank you very much. This much for today. Bye. Thank you. Take care.